Broadcasting live on YouTube, Facebook, and X. Here's your host, Andrew Romanella.
Okay? Like, just get the hell out of here. Nobody cares what you think if you're not a Mets fan.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome into another edition of The Rome Show here on 12ouncesports.com, broadcasting live on YouTube and X. I'm your host, Andrew Romanella. I got you for the next 30 minutes or so, and we have a lot of National Football League to discuss today on this Tuesday, August 26th, 2025. 53-man rosters are set in the NFL. We are 9 days away from opening kickoff, Cowboys versus Eagles, and still so much to break down. Before we get into any of that, we remind you that the Rome Show is broadcasted live on YouTube and X. Go over to TheRomanellas on YouTube and subscribe so you can, starting September 2nd, this day, next week, you can be locked on all of the Rome Show content moving forward. Starting September 2nd, if you haven't heard, you're hearing now. We will be broadcasting on the Romanellas YouTube. You can also follow the show, The Rome Show 1. That's The Rome Show, then the number 1, bottom left-hand side of your screen. That is on Instagram, Facebook, X, TikTok. You know the drill. If it's social media, follow it, and you'll get the show, The Rome Show podcast, wherever you listen to podcasts. I have an Instagram story poll up right now. Head over to the Instagram, The Rome Show 1. Get to the story and give me your thoughts. Another way you can comment in live on the show and give us your opinions, a hot take, something that's been on your mind, or any of the above. The Rome Show 1 on Instagram. All right, let's get started here with your Tuesday's top stories. Your first top story comes from Major League Baseball. Cal Raleigh has set the single season record for a catcher with home runs, belting his 50th home run yesterday for the Seattle Mariners. He now passes Salvador Perez, who in 2021 hit 48 homers. Okay, so Cal Raleigh not only surpassed Salvador Perez, but now he has become the only catcher in the history of the game to hit 50 home runs in a single season. Now, when you look at the numbers, the add of the DH definitely changes things. Now, when you look at the history of Major League Baseball, Cal Raleigh is playing for the Seattle Mariners. So the DH has been in the American League for the last 30 plus years. So that's nothing new. However, when you look at the National League, okay, the DH has not been in for except the last 10 years. And when you look at the numbers, Cal Raleigh's had 9 homers in the DH spot and 41 homers, while as the starting catcher in 2021, Salvador Perez had 15 in the DH spot and another 23 in the catcher spot. 33 in the catcher spot. Had to do some quick math there. So the DH definitely helping. Now, you know, in 1975, 1985, right? Even with the DH, there still wasn't a belief that a catcher wasn't catching every single game. The game has changed dramatically, okay? Just in general, on how you take care of your body, how the athlete takes care of themselves, how they're going to be ready for a 162 game season. Okay. But I don't care what the rules are. DH, no DH, heavier baseball, lighter baseball, pitch clock, no pitch clock, bigger bases, no bigger bases. It don't matter. 50 home runs as a catcher in a single season. Unbelievable. So for the last 3.5 to 4 weeks of the season, I don't know if the Mariners are going to make the playoffs. I'll pull up the standings where they're sitting right now. They're fighting strong for a wild card spot, and they have a chance. But for at least the next 3.5 weeks, when you're guaranteed the opportunity to see Cal Raleigh play baseball for the Seattle Mariners, you need to do it because the dude is really good. They sit in the third wild card spot right now, 4 up on the Kansas City Royals. Congratulations to Cal Raleigh, the new single season home runs leader for catchers all time. Let's get into football because we got a lot of news in the National Football League. We'll run through these really quickly. Your next Tuesday topic is Joe Mixon out 4 weeks. The running back for the Houston Texans has not been removed in the appropriate amount of time from the injured list, therefore putting him out for the first 4 weeks of the season. Why is that important? Not only is it important simply for the Houston Texans and the start of the season, because Mixon, over 1,000-yard rusher last year for this team and a key weapon with C.J. Stroud, with Nico Collins for this Texans offense over the last 2+ years, and why they have trended and made the playoffs each of the last 2 seasons. Also important if you're a fantasy football owner. We have not done our fantasy football draft yet in my league. Our draft will be next Tuesday. Okay. So for me, this definitely changes things because when you put together your top 15 in the quarterback spot, the running back spot, the wide receiver spot, Joe Mixon, at least for me, is up there. Okay. On a good team, good offensive line, already proven that he can get you 1,000 yards, can cast the ball out of the backfield a little bit. All things you're looking for in one of your 2 fantasy running backs. So Joe Mixon out first 4 weeks of the season. I believe, don't quote me on this, though you can if I'm right. Okay. And I'm going to click into it real fast. I believe the Texans signed Nick Chubb as well this offseason, which might be yes, they did. So your other running backs are Nick Chubb, who will now be number 1 while Joe Mixon's out. And then you got some dude named British Brooks and Woody Marks. And Damian Pierce. So you got Damian Pierce and Nick Chubb as your 2-headed monster till Mixon gets back. If you're looking for value on a running back later in your draft, you have 2 what you feel like are your starting running backs, and you're looking for some more running back value for the first 4 weeks of the season at least, I'm looking to grab Nick Chubb because he's going to be a number 1 back for this Texans team. And he just came off of last year for the Browns being one of their premier backs. Okay. And if you look at his career, he's rushed for nearly 7,000 yards and 51 touchdowns, averaging 5.1 rushes a carry. So it's not like Nick Chubb is some scrub. I didn't mean to rhyme. Let's continue on Tuesday's top stories here on The Rome Show. Remember, The Rome Show 1, Instagram, Twitter, or wrong button, or X, and you can get up. We have question stickers up right now if you want to comment and give us your thoughts, opinions, or a topic you'd like us to talk about on the show. Amari Cooper back with the team that drafted him. Amari Cooper, I don't know if you know this, okay, but was with the Browns for 3 or 4 years, okay? Traded to the Buffalo Bills last year. Didn't do an insane amount with the Bills. I think he was in and out of like 7 or 8 games, something like that. Don't quote me on it, but it feels like it's right, okay? And now has been a free agent since the end of last year. In his career, he's played 711 receptions, 10,033 receiving yards, 64 touchdowns, and 7 1,000-yard seasons, drafted by the Raiders in 2015. During his time with the Raiders, he did essentially a third of all of that. 19 TDs, 3,100 receiving yards, 225 catches in 52 games. Okay. Amari Cooper has been a targets guy for a lot of his career. A dude that generally finds a way to be available for 5 to 6 catches a game for a minimum of 30 to 40 yards. Okay. And so for a team like the Raiders, okay, who have Geno Smith, but not an insane amount of weapons, nice little signing late to add a veteran receiver who, by the way, just 2 years ago in 2023, I think caught 1,000 yards. Okay. So he's not that far removed. Okay. And he's not that old. I know in football we get to 30 and it's like, oh my God, this guy's so old. What are we going to do? No, I don't think so. And we've seen plenty of wide receivers collect a lot of footballs, a lot of yards, and a good amount of touchdowns from age 30 to 37, 38 in this league. So Amari Cooper signs with the Raiders. 2 more for you on the Tuesday topics. Trey Hendrickson gets paid. Terry McLaurin gets paid. The 2 dudes of the few that were in the list of hold-ins have been paid. Terry McLaurin, 3-year extension. Trey Hendrickson, a little bit more interesting to me, though. He got a pay raise for this singular season, a $14 million pay raise for this singular season. So for 2025, Trey Hendrickson, the D lineman from the Bengals, will make $30 million in the base salary, but he is now a free agent in 2026. So good for Trey Hendrickson for this season, good for the Bengals for 2025, but this guy is going to be the hottest of hot commodities come free agency next year. So unable to lock him up long-term, but able to get him back with the team week and a half before the season starts. Happy, hopefully, because the bag that he now has and trending in the right direction, now maybe you have the whole year to work on a longer-term deal. Whereas with Terry, and both these dudes are like 31, I think. So I think that was half the issue, which, again, I don't agree with. Just made this point with Amari Cooper. If production's there, production's there. For Trey Hendrickson, he's had 17 and a half sacks each of the last 2 seasons. Dude's like unbelievable, okay? All pro last year. That doesn't grow on a tree. I don't care if it's 21 or 31 years old. That doesn't just happen in the National Football League, okay? But this is a league that pays you on what you're going to do for me, not what you have done for me. Okay? Makes no sense. You got to prove yourself to get a contract, but we're not going to pay you because what you already did isn't what we believe you're going to do for us. And it's like, really? Why? Well, because you're 29, you're 30, you're over the quote unquote football hill. So if Trey Hendrickson goes out this year and does it again, 15 sacks, 14 and a half, whatever, all pro year again, which he probably will, the Bengals better have already locked him up long-term and not let him get to free agency, because there are franchises that are going to overpay for this man, and there goes the key clog for your D-line if you're the Bengals. For Jaden Daniels, I'd be celebrating today, because you now put yourself with your number 1 dude for the next bunch of years. And that's great consistency from young quarterback and number 1 wide receiver if you're the Washington Commanders. Finally, that Browns team again, back in the news. Surprise, surprise, the quarterback room. Yeah. That's right. This franchise has had as many as 6 quarterbacks in their QB room during this training camp. They now break training camp, making their 53-man roster with Joe Flacco as the as the QB1, and they have since released Tyler Huntley, and now traded Kenny Pickett to the aforementioned Raiders for a 2026 fifth round pick. The irony of this entire thing, okay, is that last year the Browns traded a fifth round pick in 2025 for Kenny Pickett. Okay, so they traded for Kenny Pickett to then trade Kenny Pickett away. He was supposed to be competing for the starting job with Joe Flacco. And I think the ultimate decision here is trade for him, bring somebody in for him to compete with. If he doesn't win the job, trade him back out for similar value, especially since you have Dylan Gabriel and Shador Sanders as young talent to develop moving forward. Now, I don't think it's a great idea to have a quarterback room where Flacco's number one and Dylan Gabriel or Shador Sanders are number two. But this is on brand for the Cleveland Browns. Okay? This is on brand. Kenny Pickett, now the backup to Geno Smith for the Las Vegas Raiders. Those are your Tuesday topics here on The Rome Show. Head to The Rome Show 1 on Instagram or X, and you can comment live your thoughts. Write in. Give us your feelings. We're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, it's 32 teams in 32 days. We got a two-pack for the people today. We're starting the AFC North. We have the F4 talked about Cleveland Browns and the Aaron Rodgers ayahuasca-led Pittsburgh Steelers. 32 teams in 32 days continues here on The Rome Show. YouTube, X. Back after this. Andrew Romanella.
Welcome to MyBookie. You're ready to create an account and start making money, and we're here to help. And remember, you can get a bonus of up to $1,000 on your first deposit. Now you're ready to bet. Just go to mybookie.ag, visit the sportsbook, click on your bet, and input the amount you want to risk or win in the bet slip. Yes, it's that easy. Just remember, at MyBookie, you play, you win, you get paid.
Need tickets to that next event? Well, at 12 Ounce Sports, we've got them with soccer anywhere in the world. Tickets to any venue, any sport. Want to go to NCAA or NFL football matches? We've got them.
Yeah.
Baseball at every level. Every Power 5 matchup is available. Don't forget, costumes and paint are optional. What's that? You want to go to Broadway? We have those too. Want to jam out? Every concert, every artist. That's right, at 12 Ounce Sports, we've got the tickets for less. 12ozsports.com/tickets. That's 12ouncesports.com/tickets.
It's the Rome Show!
Yeah. With your host, Andrew Romanella.
When you play Battle in Mario Kart and you don't turn off any of the items, there are bananas everywhere. I mean, it's like you're losing your balloons because you're slipping on bananas left and right. Bananas everywhere. What's up, everybody? Welcome back into the Rome Show here. Broadcasting live on YouTube and X. Speaking of the YouTube, head to the Romanellas on YouTube. Super simple. Oh, the beat don't want to stop. Yeah, it is. That's right. Head to the Rome Show
Your
on YouTube.
host,
Okay, and
Andrew
hit subscribe because starting September 2nd, next week, we will be broadcasting live on the Romanellas YouTube, the Rome Show 1 on X and Facebook, and that's where you need to subscribe. Okay, sadly, 12-ounce sports radio will be no longer starting next week. So if you want to become a commercial for the new iteration of the Rome Show, feel free to reach out. I think I don't really need to tell you all the places you can find me because we've been reminding you. I just need you to hit the subscribe button. You know, we start looking at that YouTube page, keep seeing those subscribers go up. Oh, it's electric stuff. Go ahead and do that for me. I'm going to do this for you. I'm going to pop the theme music on. We got some sports to talk about. Continuing our National Football League coverage. At the time of year we're in, people, and we got 32 teams in 32 days. Let me take it back for you today. All right? One of, if not historically, the hardest division in the National Football League shall be considered the AFC North or the NFC East. Okay? Slightly up for debate depending on who you are a fan of. But those two divisions have oftentimes been considered gauntlets. Tough scenarios, right? Like, oh my God, no matter what, you got to play 8 games against this division. Like, wow, this is right. Those divisions. So the AFC North, okay, I truly believe when coming to prediction time is almost nearly impossible, okay? But there is one team that I believe you can do the most prediction on, and that would be the Cleveland Browns. And here's why, okay? And I just mentioned it before. If you heard a little bit of it when I was talking about the Kenny Pickett trade, Browns to the Raiders, what I was getting into was this. It's almost impossible, if not nearly impossible, if not just straight up impossible, to change your quarterback room the amount of times the Cleveland Browns trade their quarterback room. It is not possible to create consistency for a franchise, for an offense, for anybody, if you continually do what has gone on with the Cleveland Browns, which is ride this roller coaster of who your starting quarterback is going to be. And a lot of it has to do with their own poor decisions, going all the way back to them drafting Tim Couch, okay? It has been a long line of bad quarterback making decisions. And when you sign Deshaun Watson to a lucrative guaranteed contract, after he had everything that happened with him and the Texans essentially said, let's get him the hell out of here. When you gave him all of that money, you put yourself in quarterback purgatory until he is gone. Because now you have a scenario where he's injured and out for the entire year, despite the fact that he's been atrocious the last 2 years leading up to that. So for 3 years that he's been your franchise guaranteed $230 million quarterback, he's been god-awful. Now he's injured, so you go out and put stock in not one, but 2 rookie quarterbacks in the 2025 draft. So you burn 2 draft picks, and then you send a draft pick away for a quarterback that you're eventually going to trade away. You sign a 40-year-old dude that really is the ultimate definition of a stopgap quarterback. And then you threw Tyler Huntley into the mix and then said, see you later. This is not the way you run a franchise. This is not the way you find your franchise quarterback. So for a team that was 3-14 last year, and after the season, their best player demanded a trade and then somehow rescinded that demand because he got the money he wanted and now is the leader of the locker room? 6 months later, a guy wanted to leave your franchise because he didn't think he could win there. Then he got paid, and now he believes he can win there. That is a recipe for disaster. So we could break down all the different things. We could talk about the revamped offensive line, trying to get away from the 47 sacks they gave up in 2024. We could talk about the new offensive coordinator, Tommy Rees, and the excitement around him, but it almost doesn't matter because the locker room for the Browns is a coin flip. So if it's like the year that Baker was the starting quarterback, it clearly worked because they went out and they won a playoff game. And there was something in that locker room with Kevin Stefanski as the head coach that was good enough to be a playoff contending team. I don't feel that way about this team right now. So from 3-14, I think they go to 4-13. I think by week 6, we are messing around with Dylan Gabriel or Shedeur Sanders. And I'm going to predict that the Cleveland Browns are going to play a minimum of 3 quarterbacks this year. I will set the line for starting quarterbacks for the Cleveland Browns at 2.5. You let me know if you take the over/under. I got the Browns at 4-13. Team number 2 that we are breaking down today is the Pittsburgh Steelers. All right? The Aaron Rodgers-led Pittsburgh Steelers, the team that, since Mike Tomlin's been the head coach, hasn't been under 500. The team that historically can compete but hasn't won a playoff game in like a decade. A team that, since Ben Roethlisberger has left the franchise, has been searching, hunting for who their starting quarterback could be. The also aforementioned Kenny Pickett was an attempt by this team who drafted him. Unfortunately, that did not work out. So, a lot of new things going on in Pittsburgh, starting with, as I mentioned, Aaron Rodgers. DK Metcalf also acquired in the wide receiver slot, and George Pickens sent away in the wide receiver slot. Jonnu Smith picked up in the tight end slot from the Miami Dolphins, and then 2 names that you're going to know, Jalen Ramsey and Darius Slay on the defensive side. And that is just 6 of the new names that I can list off for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So it is going to be an interesting year for the Steelers. Do I think they have the ability to be solid? Absolutely. They've proven they're going to be 9-8 or slightly better every single year that Mike Tomlin is the head coach. How? I don't know. But one thing I noticed in doing my research about the Steelers is they are completely spotty on both sides of the football. In 1 or 2 areas, they could be really, really good, but the other 2 areas, they're really, really bad. Let's take their defense, for example. They are 6th last year in rushing yards per game allowed at 95. Obviously, their defensive line in Watt, Hayward, and Heitzman is arguably the best in the league. 6th in rushing yards given up. 13th in points per game allowed at 21.5. 2 really good stats, but then they were bad. Hence, Ramsey and Slay with passing yards and total yards per game, 20th and 25th respectively last year. Same thing on the offensive side, 12th in rushing yards per game, but 20th or plus in points per game, total yards, and passing yards. So when it comes to ground game, defensively and offensively, it's there for the Pittsburgh Steelers. But can Aaron Rodgers, can DK Metcalf, and Jonnu Smith, can they all get on the same page? What is this offense going to look like? And though you have possibly the best defensive line in the league, does it matter if you're getting burned by every team's opposing quarterback? Okay, I truly believe this is where the well goes dry for the Pittsburgh Steelers. This is the season where I do think you lose your 500 streak. So I'm taking the Steelers at 8-9, and I think in typical Mike Tomlin fashion, they're going to be there. Okay, they're going to be there. I just don't see them being better than the other teams in their division, and we'll keep breaking down their division. I know they'll be better than the Browns, okay? But I just don't see them being better than the Ravens. And I think if the Bengals can get off to a hotter start this year than they did last year, I think you're going to see the Bengals as a real competitor back again in this division. So unless, and again, this could be a 12-5 team if it clicks the right way. I'm not talking about what I think their potential max ceiling is. I'm saying what I think it's going to ultimately be. Okay. And I do think that they have a pretty hard schedule, which I also think is something that plays a factor when you look at some of these teams and how good or bad they're going to be. Here's the strength of schedule. Top 15 strength of schedule. Pittsburgh Steelers fall at number 10, if you can see that on your screen. So that's also the factor there. Okay. Not only are you changing 10 to 12 starters combined on the offensive defensive side of the ball, you also have one of the hardest strength of schedules. Okay. And I know that is just on paper thing, but there's so much truth to just the difficulty of playing a certain team, regardless of what their record is. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, before we leave here today, it's my third and final reminder for this Tuesday to subscribe to the Romanellas on YouTube, because that's where the show will be airing on YouTube starting September 2nd. Romanellas on YouTube, Rome Show 1 on Instagram, Facebook, X, and TikTok. And show up tomorrow morning again at 7 a.m. with a really good attitude, because we'll be here giving you all the best. Rockies Roundup as well. Andrew Romanella, have an electric Tuesday. Until then,
thank you for listening.